The following podcast contains spoilers, adult language, and lots of questions.
This is a message from the Office of Emergency Preparedness. Due to the recent crisis, we ask that you remain in your homes. Do not attempt to communicate or interact with the creatures, even if they are people you know.
Lock your doors. Bar your windows. Evil is coming. It's time for Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. And now, here are your hosts, Diana and Steve.
Hi, and welcome back to Aim for the Head podcast. I am Diana.
And I'm Steve.
This week we're going to be back discussing the final season of Stranger Things. And this episode, we're going to be talking about episode 6. Title of the episode is Chapter 6, Escape from Camazotz. Which sounds like Camelot, and every time they say Camazotz, I'm like...
Camazotz. Shh, it's only a model.
Nice. So if you're new to our podcast, we like to break it down by giving sort of our top 5 moments of the episode. But before we get into those details, we discuss first episode description, writer and director of the episode, and before we even get to that, we do just a real quick, rapid fire, how we felt about the episode. Steve, you went first in last week's episode, talking about Chapter 5, so it's my turn to go first. So, Chapter 6, Escape from Camazotz, how do I feel?
What did you think?
What did I think? It's a good episode. There's a lot of good things. I felt like there's a lot of online negativity once we hit like a certain point in this season and people felt like it was, went a little off the rails. And this is kind of where it started, where people are like, what? And I do have some questions. In rewatching it, I feel like I felt stronger about this episode than I did when I watched it the first time. And I'm curious if others might feel the same way too. Like, give it a little space, a little time, revisit the episode. It's got a little bit more meat to it than I think you got the first time around. I liked this episode. I think I've said this for the last couple. Not my favorite of the season, but it's still like the action is moving forward. It's just I'm getting to that point now, and this was that episode when I watched it the first time, and still a little bit the second time around, where you watch this episode and you find yourself going, oh my god, let's just get to it already, could we? And you start to sort of get that feeling watching it this time around as well, even though there are some things that are that felt a little bit better. I felt like some of the descriptions of things that are going on that are kind of sciencey and science fiction-y and things like that, I felt they were grounded a little bit better this time around, and I was paying a little closer attention to the details this time around, so I did a lot less of the first time around. I just wanted to make it through so that I was really, really, really not wanting to be spoiled about this season. So the first time I went through all of these episodes, I really kind of it was like skimming a book, for crying out loud. You're like, okay, get to the end so I can know what's happening here. So some of the sciencey things, like the stuff with Dustin and whatever, I was like, I have no idea what he's talking about. Slowing it down and watching it a couple more times now, I feel like I understood more. It's a little more grounded. I do still have some questions. Good episode, not great episode, still moving stuff forward. Lots of character development, lots of character movement. Good episode overall. So what did you think of Escape from Camazotz?
I'm still just trying to process that, you just were not paying attention and just kind of running through the episode. I'm like, what? But okay, that's an interesting way to watch. I'll give you that.
No. I was paying attention. It's like the stuff where...
Were you though?
No, I was paying attention, but mostly to plot lines as opposed to and the overall are they going to make it? The little undercurrent details of like how they're going to get there. I was going so fast. I was paying attention to like what people were like. I don't know. It's hard to describe. It was the equivalent.
Obviously.
It was the equivalent. All I can say is that it was the equivalent of like skimming a book. That's all. And it's, but I got more details the second time around and enjoyed it more the second time around. So how about you? What did you think of this episode?
I was not skimming the book, and I actually like this episode a lot. I think that you're right that there's that you can tell that they're approaching the end, and so they're like, there's a lot of stuff we got to make sure everybody at least gets an idea about. So and they do not waste all that much time getting to it. So but it is nice that the whatever it is that's on the up by the near the roof of the institute building, they say what it is. Oh, okay, that's what that is. And then you find out about the wall, and you find out just a lot of things, like a little, it's sort of like they're like little pieces that don't necessarily give away the whole plot, but they help us understand what's going on. I mean, we get this great bit on Henry and his backstory, right? And we get a lot of stuff between Steve and Dustin, and a lot of Dustin's anger. There's more reasoning for that, and what's going on, and why he's so pissy with the hair, and why he is so against doing anything with him, and so on. And so yeah, I thought this episode was really great. There was obviously some great tension moments in there, with Holly, and then you get the whole storyline with Nancy and Jonathan. And then the Max and Holly stuff. So it's almost like some of the plot points or through lines that we've been watching in these first 5 episodes. In this episode 6, they kind of end them, because Max is out. And we get the sense that Holly is also like close to getting out, right? Because we see she's right by her exit too. Right. They're at the end. They're doing the run thing to try and get there.
Trying to make it up that hill.
And so you're like, right, yeah, right. So you get the sense that, okay, whatever that storyline was we were following of those two, that's going to be over, and it's going to be something different now. And so again, we're taking those steps to the total resolution of the story. So yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I thought there was some good writing in it. I thought there was a couple of really great lines. There's a great little Murray comedic break in the middle of it. And we finally get to see Robin with Vicky and that storyline that she's just kind of talked about a lot so far. We actually get to see them do and kind of work it out,
right.
Type thing where Vicky literally has to be read into kind of what's going on, and she doesn't believe a word, and So yeah, so there's a lot of good stuff. So overall, I really liked it. I thought, again, it's just another good episode that's building towards the conclusion.
Agreed.
So
agreed. All right, so we've got some points to get to, but before we do that, let's just remind ourselves of the description of the episode we're about to chat about, and then we'll get into talking about the writer and the director. So Steve, why don't you go ahead and do that, and we'll move on.
All right. So, as you had already mentioned, this is the Netflix series Stranger Things. We are on covering episode 5.6, which is season 5, episode 6. And the title is Chapter 6, The Escape from Camazotz. And, of course, that's a reference to the Wrinkle in Time story that is hugely prevalent in this particular season. And the description that we have is as follows. As Holly and Max fight to escape Vecna's mind, Elle must find a way into Will's. Joyce wrestles with guilt. It was like a Jello wrestling. It was really good. And Jonathan and Nancy face a turning point. It's like, do they face the melting point?
That's more
I think
appropriate.
But that is your episode description, and again, actually pretty good because it kind of touches on everything. If anything, I would argue about the Joyce wrestles with guilt, because while that was there, that was a really small part.
More, I would say, was the
of
tiniest
the
part of the episode. I had to think about that.
Yeah,
I was like, she wrestled with guilt. Oh, with the will stuff, but it's like 3 minutes.
It's like 3 minutes, and it's fairly early in the episode, and then they never really go back to it at all. So it's like, okay, whatever, I get it. Anyway, though, that is your description, but moving on to our writer and our director, and I believe we have two new people for this episode, which there you go. So no more Frank Darabont. You get that hack out of here.
Who does he think he is?
Don't need him. I know, it's way too big for his britches. But we start with our writer, and our writer is a gal named Kate Treyfry. Treyfry, Trefry, Trey or Tree. You tell me. If I'm mispronouncing it, Kate, I'm so sorry. And I know you'll be shocked by this, but she is a co-executive producer of the show. Hello. She's been involved with Stranger Things for 19 episodes, and basically she was not really involved in season 1, but has been involved in the season 2 all the way through to season 5. So, and she, as a writer, just as a sole individual writer, she has written 3 episodes of the series total in those 4 seasons. But she has, in those 19, like the other 16 episodes that she was involved with, she has a lot of credits as staff writer. So she was obviously in the writing room and involved that way. That's how she, I'm sure, started on the show. And it was only either last season or this season that she became a co-executive producer. So she kind of worked her way up. So there you go. And she does not have a whole bunch of other writing credits. She was the writer of something called Fear Street Part 3, 1666. I don't know what that is, but was something that was on there. And then she wrote several like short movies, type things. One is called How to Be Alone, and the other is called Souls of Totality. And again, they are both short films. So maybe they're out there on, like YouTube or something. You could watch if you wanted to look her up. But that was where she probably got started, and then she obviously got the Stranger Things gig and has been working on that, for the last 4, 5, 6 years. So that is our writer, Kate Treyfry, and our director is a dude named Sean Levy. And he also, not surprisingly, is a co-executive producer of Stranger Things. The dude is a very prolific director in other projects. With Stranger Things, he has directed a total of 10 episodes. He has been involved with Stranger Things since the beginning, so all 42 episodes he was involved with. And he basically directs 2 episodes in every season that the show has gone. And a little bit of a spoiler alert, but he's the director for next week's episode too. So,
spoiler.
So a little spoiler. So we will be talking about him or mentioning him again a week from today as well. But outside of the Stranger Things, he has directed a lot of television, but also a lot of movies, and I think a lot of movies that people are familiar with. He directed the Deadpool and Wolverine film. He directed the Adam Project. He directed a movie called Free Guy, which had Ryan Reynolds and, again, which is probably where he met Ryan Reynolds and so on. He directed episodes of the TV series The Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. He directed all 3 of the Night at the Museum movies with Ben Stiller. So, yeah, I mean, and I think he has like 40 some directing credits, going back to like the late 1990s is kind of when he started. So I mean, the guy's worked a ton, a total pro, and done a lot of stuff, and he's done like a lot of comedic or comedy edged things, you know, when you look at like Deadpool and The Night at the Museum and all those kind of things, they're all kind of have that kind of funny angle to them as well. So, and then interestingly enough, he also is an actor and has been in a ton of things, and too many to mention. However, the one that jumped out at me was if you go back to Stranger Things season 1 episode 4 entitled Chapter 4, The Body, he shows up as, and his official character is referred to as Morgue Worker. So there you go.
Oh, I love it. I love when people do that, when they're involved with a series but they end up in the cast somewhere, you know.
Making a little cameo, yeah. And that, look, if you go and look at his like IMDb page, you'll see that like almost all of his movies he has a cameo in. And, you know, I'm sure like it's a walk, like you said, you know, like it's just they're doing the old Hitchcock gag, you know. So yeah, but that is our writer, Kate Trefry, and our director, Sean Levy or Levy. So there you go.
Levy, Trefry.
Trefrio, I don't know.
Whatever. Immaterial. Yeah. Both did a great job. All right, so let's get started. So my number one that I want to talk about is in the cold open when we come back right upon where we left off in the last episode, which was Jonathan and Nancy on the roof of the lab, the Hawkins lab, and her taking aim and shooting, and it's like smash cut to darkness. Well, this picks up right where that leaves off, and you see, I just loved the image where it showed the tip of Nancy's smoking gun, like a literal smoking gun, and then the camera just sort of pans and shows her standing there holding the gun. And from the moment in season 1, when Nancy first picked up a weapon, all the way up until now, I've loved that they've always shown Nancy as this just absolute badass when it comes to weaponry. She's always been someone who could handle herself, and I think that that's really cool that they've always really showed her as. It's funny that there's always been an undercurrent or a subplot of these guys like wanting to, you know, help her and take care of her and whatever, and she literally needs none of them. She's very independent and very, very much can take care of herself. And this is just an absolute symbol of what her character has become throughout all of these seasons. Is she is always dependent upon by the group to be the one who will, you know, quote unquote, she'll bring it. You know, you don't have to worry about her to be ready to fight a battle. She's always going to be right there at the front. And it's
almost like she's the fighter of the party.
Exactly. And I just thought that the way that it was filmed, the imagery with it just sort of panning out and showing Nancy, and it just is a really, really strong, badass kind of pose she's in, and it's just great. I thought it was a great way to start off the episode, even though ultimately what they did was a mistake. But they didn't know that. She didn't know she was making a mistake. It's still a badass way to start the episode. So yeah, that's my number one. Love that image.
What I love about it is after we get that great shot of her, holding the gun, Jonathan goes, "Did you miss?" And she gives him that look like, "No.
When have I ever missed?"
Yeah, right. You know, so like, I don't think so. But yeah. I talk about, you know, going to the right opening. You know, how many other shows would and on Walking Dead, I'm looking in your direction with the cheesemaker, where the whole episode we didn't go back to the damn storyline. We wanted to know what happened right away. And here, you know, again, when that, you know, we have Dustin frantically trying to tell them, don't shoot, it'll like kill everyone, and then she shoots, and so you're like, oh my god, what happened? And so they don't, the Duffers are like, yeah, we know you want to know, so here it is, and they come right to it. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, very, very good. All right, cool. Yeah. All right, let's talk your number one.
Mine is I put down my note is sort of like the end of that, but it was that whole
Okay.
opening sequence, and that because she shoots it and then there's like really nothing really instantly happens. And that's when Jonathan's like, maybe you missed or whatever. He suggests that she somehow didn't hit it, and she just kind of gives him that look like, no, I hit it. Okay, yeah. And of course, then like it like explodes. It has this like outward rush of energy, and they get sent flying, right, and they're both knocked silly. And this like massive, like the Death Star exploded like fireball shoots out across the whole upside
Right.
down, to the point where like Hop and Elle and Kali see it go like over the church
Yeah.
where they are. You know what I mean? So it's everywhere. And then after it kind of this shockwave goes by, like the wall where Hop and Elle and Kali is, it starts like cracking, and like a hole opens in it, and it's almost like like an airplane that like the cabin depressurizes in the middle of the flight, where
Right.
like all thing, it starts sucked out. They have to like fight to try and not get sucked out. And my comment that I wrote down is because possibly the coolest character on the show, Steve Harrington, his beamer that we remember has been stuck in the wall since they
Right.
ran into it, several episodes ago. It gets sucked through and is on the other side, and there's this shot from like the other side of the
Mhm.
wall where we finally see what's on the other side, and it's literally like space. And the beamer is sort of like drifting through it, and of course the light on and everything. And my comment is, I just went back to when I was a kid, we would watch the Muppet Show, which was the Jim Henson thing that they did every week, and there was a segment on the Muppet Show that they would do every once in a while, and it was called Pigs in Space. And yet when they would show it and they would announce it, the announcer would always go, "Pigs in space."
Yep.
And so then in my head, I heard beamer in space, because there's his car. His car is just drifting away, so yeah. So, but anyway, I love that whole opening, the whole fact that it did all that, and it was obviously bad, but it didn't at least instantly end the world. But you're sort of like, uh-oh, did they just like start something that they shouldn't have?
Right.
It's like now this is another obstacle they got to overcome, that now there's only so much time before
Right.
this thing's gonna go back, all those kind of questions. So yeah. So but anyway, I love the opening. I thought it was really fun, and it blows you right into the episode and gets you all excited for it. And I think after that whole bit, we go right into the credits. So there's nothing else we see except this opening scene before the opening credits roll.
I have a question about the beamer, though, and
Mm-hmm.
I hadn't brought it up the last couple of episodes, but from the moment they crash into the flesh wall, as we can call it, up until it's beamer in space,
Mm-hmm. See, it's addictive, isn't it?
It is addictive. How do we feel about the fact that the lights were on the whole time?
That always bothered me. It's like, dude, why don't you turn them off, right? I mean, it's like, you're just wasting the battery, right?
I mean, you got to figure, like, they crashed and they got out of the car as soon as possible. So I could understand leaving the car running to a degree. But my point is if they got out of the car really fast because they crashed, and they left the car running because they didn't know what they crashed into, they were thrown off by the whole flesh wall thing, they'd never seen anything like it before, like all of that, like I get that. My point is we've gone at least 24 hours since then, and we're supposed to believe that the battery lasted that long, and the lights were still on. So I don't know, like, I guess you can explain it away. Maybe there's an energy source running through the wall, because that's entirely possible. Maybe they had extra power strapped into the beamer because of they they added the radar, the telemetry tracker thing, that you could certainly do that too. But I don't know. I always felt like it was it was one of those little things where like, really? You took the time to do the CGI for this, and no one was like, hey, should the cars still have power at this point? But, I get it. Those things happen, but it's something that's bothered me the last couple of episodes, and I hadn't mentioned it. But since the beamer is now in space and gone forever, one would think, this was like my last opportunity to complain about it. So, I get it.
Because it gone now.
It's very gone.
Yeah.
But
it did. It did always kind of bother me that it's like, for him to have loved that car the way he always acted, you would think he would turn the lights off immediately because it would save the battery. Because I always assumed that he had some idea of, well, we're gonna save my car too, right?
Right. Because Steve is so adorable. He's gonna be like, well, we got to get back to my car, right? That's
right? On the list, right? So we're gonna rescue Max, and we're gonna rescue Holly, and then we're gonna rescue my car. I mean, that's the three, right? That's what we're doing. That's
just the obvious chain of events that's happening.
Right.
It's not crazy at all to think that way.
No. So you're right. It did always, because they showed it every episode since it got stuck there, and every time you see it, the brake lights are still on, the tail lights.
Yes.
And I'm always just like, dude, turn them off. What are you, an idiot? So yeah, and I guess I never really thought about the, how long does the battery last thing. I'm sure the Duffers, you ask them, they would say like, oh, like in the Upside Down, like battery life is like tripled or something. You know what I mean? They'll have some sciencey thing. Yeah, that's just sort of like, go away, nerd. So yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, anyway, so I had the problem with the beamer, but I liked that it was in space. And yes, the whole opening was really cool with the sucking everything, the vacuum that sucked everything into space was very cool. I even really liked, because we've agreed with, listeners, etc., and ourselves that Elle isn't as to the forefront as she's been in previous seasons. She's definitely there and she's part of the crew, but she's not like the number one character every episode, because there's just so many characters for them to have to, they're suffering from Walking Dead illness. There's just too many main characters. So it was nice to have like a very classic like Elle moment where Hop's like, no, and she clears the way for them to get over to that little rift that broke open, and she's like clearing the way and helping them get over to there so they can get out. And it was just nice to see like I can't explain it other than a classic Elle moment, as it were. So it was an interesting cold open that ends with this image of the beamer floating through space, which is just amazing. And funny too. Like it's very tongue-in-cheek and funny that, Steve didn't even want to use the beamer, and then Dustin commandeered it and drilled the hole in the roof, and then the next thing you know, his beamer is now in space.
It is. It's a beamer in space. Yeah. Yep. Never to be seen again.
Never.
Good luck explaining that to the insurance company.
All right, cool. So moving on, my number 2 is the resurgence of, I love Erica so much. Erica Sinclair for president. I'm just saying, just the facts. But, we were so, entrenched in Lucas's plan that it was like, oh, okay, because that was what the entire end of last episode was them plugging all these, getting the Demogorgon hooked up to the electricity and, having Will be in the mind and all that other stuff. So it's, that all happened, and you totally forgot, oh yeah, that's right, Erica has her own little thing to go off and do. And she shows up, ringing Mr. Clark's doorbell, and when he answers, her quote is incredible. And she says, before you say anything, I know it's 5 a.m, but I need you to build me a telemetry tracker. And then his first thing he says is he's like, Erica, it's 5 in the morning. And then Mari's like, she led with that, dude.
Yeah. And he's
Stop
like, who are
wasting
you?
your time. So that whole scene was hilarious. I've got that listed in my honorable mentions as well for a couple of quotes there. But I love Erica, but I also love that Erica was an outsider and then became one of the group, even though she's not like, she's like an honorary group member. She's her own thing. But she now, like, the fact that she loves science and Mr. Clark is her favorite teacher and all this other stuff, I love that she's sort of become her own sort of fierce being and loves science and loves this whole world. And I love that it was her idea to bring Mr. Clark into it. And it's great to see him because he's been a big part of the series. You know, he's the small character, but he's been a big supporting character since season 1, you know, the boys being in their little audiovisual club and helping them out with, they're like, let's just, hypothetically, asking science questions and him being like, guys, I don't understand and whatever. And for it to all come to a head with him being sort of recruited in this season. So I thought it was really great for a small character Clark to have all of this follow through, but to have it start out with Erica, who is just amazing. I love it. Erica's great little line upon ringing Mr. Clark's doorbell at 5 o'clock in the morning is my number 2. Yay.
Well, and you left out that we find out that Mr. Clark is shacking up with the librarian.
Right.
Which is a huge thing.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's interesting that in this episode we have 2 supporting characters, I guess you would say, that up until this point are part of this show, but they are not because they don't know what's going on. They just are characters that are, people that live in Hawkins and are like, wow, look at all the military. Wow, the holes in the ground opened up. And isn't that weird, Yeah. And yet both of them, because it's Mr. Clark and Vicky, are both read in to the what's going on.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're both sort of, hey, you're part of the group now.
Yeah. Welcome to the crew.
Whether you believe it or not, this is what's actually happening. And that was like you said, Mr. Clark has been in the series all 6 seasons or all 5 seasons.
Yeah.
He's been a recurring character throughout it, and obviously initially it started with Dustin because he was Dustin's favorite teacher and all that, and now Erica's kind of picking up that mantle where like you just know that she's gonna be like Dustin 2.0 once Dustin leaves school, and graduates and is gone. So it was a really fun scene. That was one of the lighter moments of the whole episode where there wasn't like imminent death with a funny line. It was just a funny line.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, loved it. All right, so let's talk. Let's hit your number 2 then.
So we jump back to Henry's mind, and we have, of course, the end of last episode, we get the Max, if you can hear me, you got to run moment. And so Max and Holly took Will's advice. Although, interestingly enough, they think it's 11 that said that. I thought that was an interesting little tidbit that they did not come to the conclusion that it was Will. And why would they? They're completely unaware of what Will has been becoming.
Yeah.
But anyway, they took the advice and they ran, and they basically make it back to the rocks, to the cave where Max is sort of holed up, and Max is pretty much like, we're just gonna sit here and wait, because clearly that was Elle's voice, which means Elle knows we're in Henry's mind, and now we'll just sit here because that means that she'll come and rescue us.
Right. We just need to wait it out.
Yeah, we can wait it out, and this place is safe, right? And she kind of hypothesizes why this place is safe at this moment. And it's kind of something that we had talked about earlier, which is this is clearly a very painful memory for Henry, and that's why he doesn't want to go in there, why he won't go into that cave. And of course Holly's like, well, what's so bad about it? Because you're like, there's nothing in here, and I'm just like, yeah, just wait, but anyway, so that's sort of hypothesized. And of course Holly is like, well, we gotta move, we gotta find our own way out of here. And so she's like, let's go. And so they sort of have this little argument about, Holly saying, let's go out there and explore and find, there has to be a gateway out of here. We just have to find it. And Max is like, I've been here for a long time. I've never seen anything. And we just need to wait for Elle, because Elle will come and save us. And so they're having this argument. And then Holly basically looks out into the desert through the large opening that's in the back of the cave wall, and it's like, well, what's out there? And she's like, sand. And she's like, nothing, I've looked out there, I've never seen anything. And Holly's like, well, I'm going. And so she gets up to leave and go outside, and Max is like no, I'm not coming with it, or is like doesn't make it a move to help her.
Right.
And then I wrote this line down, and Holly's like, are you coming, or are you gonna let a child head into the desert unsupervised?
Yes.
Which I thought was really cool. And then again, a lot of my points are lines, but they're really just about the whole scene that the line happens in.
Yeah.
And so we get it's pretty cool, because Holly literally gets to Nancy Drew the crap out of the whole situation, and she literally using the spyglass, she is able to spy what the secret of this area is. And I wanted to ask you about that, because I liked it. I liked the reveal. I liked how they found the literal spot where something is not right.
Right.
And I'm just wondering what was your take on that whole scene? Did you think that there was anything out there, or were you just like that whatever it is, it's got to be in the cave? And there's the bit where she's like, maybe there's a secret passage, and Max is like, yeah, right, a secret passage. Yeah. Sure.
Yeah, her sarcasm is great.
So anyway, what did you think of that scene?
When I first watched this episode, I honestly thought that they were going to come up against. I did not think they were going to find the way out. I'll say that flat out. I honestly thought that they were going to come up against Henry again in some way, because I was expecting the little trek out into like the little desert area to expose that Henry can't enter the rocks, but the area sort of behind it he can roam around in, or whatever. It's just the rock area that he, for some reason, is frightened of. But we know that that's not true. That first time through, I was on the edge of my seat that whole time, because I was expecting them to be like, there's nothing here. What's that in the distance? And it's like Henry walking towards them or whatever. You know what I mean? So yeah, I liked the reveal. It's a really good jump scare, the way they played it out, and the whole, using the spyglass and the stuff, like all of the stuff that they built around it in order to find it, I thought was really cute. And kind of, you have to remember too, like, this is still a show about children. I know that all of the original 4, 4 plus 1, the boys plus Elle, they're all like, sophomores, juniors in high school, but they're still technically like, they're all in that like 15, 16 range, you know what I mean? So they're not like kids, but they're not adults either. So, sorry. So you've got to remember that this story, at its essence, is still a story about young people. I mean, they've gotten a little bit older, but they are young people, even if you don't feel comfortable calling them kids. So something that's got like a sort of childlike wonder about them. And Holly kind of brought that back. It helped rediscover the childlike wonder that is was a through line of this whole series. The main characters have gotten a little bit older. She helps remind them, sometimes it is just looking through a spyglass. Sometimes it, you know what I mean, as simple as that. And I liked that. It was a simple but really effective way to have the plot move forward, but also utilize Holly in a way that makes it still feel like childlike and magical in a way. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So yeah, I liked it. I really liked it. It was and I like that, Max is so sarcastic and so like negative about stuff, and Holly is just like, her whole story about their uncle and the, you going to the Indiana Dunes and all of that, and how like she's the tourist and she's got luck on her side that she might find something, and Max is just so negative about the whole thing. They make a real good sort of like Oscar and Felix combination, or bad cop, good cop kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like those tropes. It works really well. It really does. They're a good, they're a good little unit, those two together.
It definitely had that. Max was sort of the, I'm the experienced older person that has done this and knows that what you're talking about just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
And Holly has that kind of young sort of I don't know any better kind of energy that we all used to have, where it's like, we're going to do it this way. And even though like an experienced person is like, wow, that is going to be so much work and you're going to hate it. But like when you've never done it before, you're like, it's going to work, I also loved the payoff with the cap to the telescope.
Yes. Yes.
That Holly, like at least like 2 or 3 times had pulled out the telescope in earlier episodes and looked through it, and we get the shot through like the hole and bottom of the cap, and then she's like, oh, the lens cap, and she keeps, they kept doing it, and she kept forgetting, and after a while I'm like, why do you even keep that stupid thing on? Just keep it off, and then finally she does it again here, and then it finally clicks. Yeah. And she Nancy Drews it and goes, oh, wait a minute. That isn't just a random hole. That was something Henry did. I wonder why. And then, she starts putting it together. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, that whole bit of them in the cave, and then when they go out into like, the American Southwest or wherever they are. I mean, it's not Hawkins, right? But that whole scene I thought was really well done between the two of them. And again, it's kind of a quieter scene,
right?
Where they're they're kind of, I mean, there's the moment early on when Henry comes right up to the opening of the cave and kind of levels there are other ways to get to you, Max, and of course that tips, I think ultimately that motivates Max because, she kind of realizes that, oh, well, maybe he'll come after me in the real world or something. And so maybe getting out of here is a good idea. But after that happens, it's just the two of them, and it's a real fun scene to see them play off each other. So yeah, you're right. I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I liked it. And it was good, like you said about it being kind of like quieter. It was one of the scenes where, even though like, yes, the first time through, I was like, oh, Henry's going to show up at it. There's still like a little bit of dread. It's still like a light scene. You know what I mean? There's not imminent threat. There's like the suggestion of danger, and you, which has been placed in your mind by the creators. They're not really in any danger if you think about it, because Max has treaded out there a bunch of times, as she said, and she didn't say she ever ran into Henry or ever had any danger out there. So ultimately, if you really think about it, there is no danger. But, like I was saying, you don't think about that. You don't process all of that. You're just like, oh, should they leave the rocky area? And then they're out there, and it is kind of like a lighthearted, walk through the desert, as it were. If that can ever be lighthearted. But yeah, it's an effective scene, and it's one of those ones that didn't feel as effective first time through, and upon multiple viewings you're like, this really Like, it makes sense. It's there for a lot of different reasons, and it's a good scene. It's a really good scene between those two. All right.
I agree.
I know. That's why you included it. So let's move on. My number 3, I just put it down as the title card, but I loved that they included it to sort of remind you where they are. At one point, when there's a transition out of one scene and into another, the November 6th title card comes up. And I made note of it because I'm like, if that's true, then that means we really are at the end. If, like Lucas, he says like 10 times in the coming like couple of episodes, if his theory is correct about the whole anniversary of when Will was taken, then November 6th will be very important. And they just wanted to remind you, don't forget, we have now arrived at November 6th. So if that theory is true, then the proverbial shit will hit the proverbial fan very soon.
Yes, the sands are ticking out of the hourglass very quickly. So yes,
yeah. Or as he said in 10 Things I Hate About You, the shitteth hath hitteth the fanneth.
The fanneth.
Yes. So.
When I saw that, all I could think of was remember the 6th of November. And I'm like, hey, we're in V for Vendetta.
I know. Except, Lucas is like, yeah, let me tell you, November 6th.
Yeah.
Duh.
November 6th.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. It's kind of not quite the same as what's his name, the Australian guy.
Yeah. Hugo Weaving.
Yeah.
Little different, but still, they have their connections to Lord of the Rings, all of them.
All of them do.
It all leads back to the Fellowship. Let's be honest.
There you go.
So November 6th, that's where we are, and it does not bode well for the future, as it were. So that's my number 3. So how about your number 3? Let's chat about that.
Yeah, my number 3 is. We jump back to Elle and Hop and Kali, and we should point out that like in the beginning when the beamer in space moment happens and the opening in the wall kind of starts sucking everything out, part of like the ground in the Upside Down gets torn up and out, and it literally creates an opening back to our world. And and I know you talked about it a little bit because you mentioned that Elle uses her superpowers to kind of shield them as they make a run for it and all that, but we never really see that resolution. Do they make it or not? They just are like running towards it, and then it cuts away to the next scene. And so at this point, a little later in the episode, back in the real world, it turns out that they did escape. And I think doesn't like Mike like look out the window of the radio station and go like, why is there a Hertz out front or something?
Did someone call the funeral home?
Yeah, and so they come outside and this hearse pulls up, and of course it's Hop and Elle and Kali. So they're all there, and so they're now back, and so you get the little reunion scene, where there are lots of hugs and stuff, except for Kali because no one knows who the hell she is. She's just standing there in her little white outfit, but and anyway, so there's a lot of splaining going on about, who Kali is and also what they discovered when they were down in the Upside Down. And Elle is, I think, talking to Mike about, the whole deal with, Elle got her powers through Henry using his blood. And even if they, were to kill Henry, it's still not going to be the happy ending that Mike is predicting they're going to get, because the government is trying to start again they were trying to start with Kali using her blood, and they will keep searching for me through, forever, because I'm like 11 is like the most successful, thing that they got out of Henry's blood, and like the most powerful person that they were able to create. So if they can't get Henry, they certainly want her.
Right.
And so I kind of wrote this line down that says, but with me, with my blood, they can make more monsters. They can make more Henrys. And so I like it because out of all of these characters, really, 11 is the only one that is kind of looking past the end of the game, if you will. Where it's like everyone else is just solely focused on, we have to save the kids, we have to kill Henry, we have to, stop him.
Right.
And she is like one of the few people. Well, Kali, I think maybe a little too, as well. But of the main kids we know, the main characters, she's like the only one that is like, okay, even if we succeed and everything works out the way we expect it to, what happens next? And again, Mike has this sort of fairy tale ending of, well, we will go find someplace and live, and it'll just be you and me, and it'll be great, and that's very much of a immature, inexperienced person on how the world works, thinking how things are going to work out, very much like a high school kid that is like, well, you and I we'll go find a place, and like I'll like play guitar at night, and you know what I mean? It's just like all these kind of crazy dreams you have when you're a teenager that you just like, well, it'll just work. And of course she is sort of like starting to realize from what she's experienced and what Kali has told her that might not be a thing, right. And that it's like, look, even if we're able to kill him, it's still not going to be a happy ending, for at least for me, at least for her, right. And so I really like that. I like that she's at least starting to at least, conceive or think about or plan a little bit about, well, what happens after everything is resolved, and again, she's like the only one to it. So I really like that scene. What were your thoughts on that scene?
It's similar, because I like that Elle is being more realistic about like not, it's not killing Henry, like it's not the end game, and that's what my number 4 was Kali in the scene with Hop and Elle, and she makes her point known that it's about more than just beating Henry / Vecna. She says killing Henry won't ... end this. So she and the whole blood theory, the blood thing with the pregnant ladies and whatever, and creating more Henrys or more 11s, as it were, is really the goal of the military. And I like that Elle is being more real, I guess pragmatic about it. Yes, it'd be great if there was a happy ending for her and for Mike, and to live somewhere. It's even funny how that, he's even, the way he describes it sounds like a dream as opposed to like reality, which again highlights how young they are,
right.
So I really like it, because even though, again, they're still young, they're young adults, as it were, there's a lot of maturing that happens within this series, just this season. You see a lot of growth in all of the characters in different ways. And in Elle's case, it's, accepting the reality of, I may not have a happy ending. It may be, saving my friends and my family, and maybe something bad happens to me or to Kali or whatever, because ultimately, there's more at stake than just, this Henry thing is pretty big, but it's not just him. There are other considerations to think about. So I liked all of that stuff where, Elle is sort of coming clean about everything that, Kali's been talking to her about, etc. And it's funny because it's like Hop is so negative about it because he doesn't want to lose Elle, because he can't. He just physically, after dealing with the loss of one daughter, he can't lose another. So he's just very like, he just doesn't like Kali. He thinks she's, a negative influence, etc. But she's just being, Kali's just more realistic, and is sort of opening Elle's eyes to the realism of the situation, as opposed to like the pie in the sky, like, well, if we do this, we'll have this sort of happy ending thing. So yeah, it's good. for a show that's about fantasy, it puts a heavy dose of realism in there for what might be part of the ending, which is coming up quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I just think, yeah, it's really nice that it, you know, we're starting to get that, at least, you know, somebody in this crew is starting to go, what's going to happen after?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah. We're coming up close to the after, whatever that may be. And
well, Elle is, because, you know, she's got her superpowers and all. She realizes that there are only 2 episodes left after this. So
yeah, she knows, and she knows how to count. That it only goes to 8, so yeah.
Only good. As much as we think 8, the last one should be 2 and it should be 9, it's really only 8.
It's really only 8, yeah.
All right.
So yeah, good scene. So that kind of covers your number 3 and mine number 4. So let's jump and talk a little bit about your number 4, your little line there with Holly.
Yeah, and this goes back to the desert scene, and you know she's figured out that the cap of the telescope is actually part of this, because the hole in the cap actually it kind of matches the opening of the back wall of their cave from a distance.
Yep.
And the first part of it kind of looks like an M in the way that it's shaped.
Yes.
And so she makes the deduction that, okay, Henry clearly was standing somewhere out here in this vast kind of open desert area and looking at the cave, at that opening, and he made this little hole to match it on the cap, and that way he could find the spot again, you know, like he could always come back to that spot. And so she is literally doing we just got to kind of walk around while I'm looking through this thing to kind of make it match up, you know, so that the opening is the exact size as the hole on the cap. And of course, Max is 1000% skeptical that this is not going to work and it's a total waste of time.
Of course.
And literally Holly steps back and she steps on, there's a wood covering that has, you know, sand and earth on top of it obscuring it so you can't see it, but she steps on it and she goes right through it.
Yeah.
And it cracks through, and they find there's this huge wooden structure that's built, a tunnel, you know, and there's a ladder and all this stuff. And of course, Max saves her and doesn't let her fall and everything. And so they realize, wow, you were right. And Holly kind of goes, and marks the spot.
Yeah.
and so this is great, because now we finally get one of my honorable mentions, which is they go down this ladder, and there's a cave down there, and in this cave, this is where I labeled it as, this is sort of Henry's origin story, and we sort of get the first version of it, kind of the down and dirty quick version, and we don't necessarily get all of it, but we get enough for us to go, oh, well, this explains some things. So
yes.
And so anyway, I just thought it was really adorable the way she's like, M marks the spot. So
and then falls.
Right.
I included part of this in one of my honorable mentions too, which I thought was really cool. The way that they used the cutout of the spyglass, you know, lens cover there to match the rock formation so that Henry could find that. You have to think that once we got the little origin story there, and you have to figure he must hide something down there and then maybe need to get back there at another point. So he marks it on his, so he can find it later, right? And to me, it just felt like it was such a nod to Goonies, with holding up the doubloon that matches the rocks so they know they're in the right place. It's almost like a similar pattern. So it just felt very Goonies to me, and I which is another kid adventure story. So I loved that. I loved that it and and the fact that she was right, you know, that she told Max, you know, just because you've tried doesn't mean I can't try once and be, like she said, the tourist, find something, and lo and behold, she does, which is great. I love that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And again, it's just adorable because she tells that story about her uncle, about how he searched forever with the metal detector and found nothing
Oh yeah.
of value. And then this, nobody first timer showed up and found like a can like full of like gold coins or something, right?
Yeah.
Like became rich, basically what the uncle always dreamed of doing. And so she's just sort of rubbing it in Max's face, going like, it could totally happen. And Max is just like, oh no, you dumb kid. And then it's like, oh hey, look at that, it worked.
Yeah.
Huh.
How about that?
Damn. Yeah.
And she's too busy screaming to be like, "Ha! I told you so."
Yes, there's very little "I told you so" in
Yes,
that
yes.
moment. So,
But
yeah.
I do like how how it's adjusted to M marks the spot instead of the X marks the spot. So that was really cute. Really, really cute.
Absolutely.
Nice. So, all right. So number 5. So.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some questions.
Melty floor.
I have some questions about the I mean, basically it's like marshmallow cream floor, as it were, for the Nancy and Jonathan scene with the melting building, and they're stuck in the room, and it's this really great scene, and because I want to say that when I first watched the series, the season, as it were, and I, sped through episodes to try, I just wanted like plot points. Some of the relationshipy stuff is the stuff that bothered me the most. Like, ultimately, I want to know whether they beat Henry and Vecna, whether they survive the Upside Down, whether they save Hawkins, blah, blah, blah. Who Nancy ends up with, I really couldn't care less, one way or the other. So the like relationshipy stuff has never been, something that really like was a main plot point for me. And all of this sort of manufactured like tension between Steve and Nancy and Jonathan for this season has been kind of like, oh God, really? Anyway. That being said, even though it's not something that I really enjoyed, watching the scene between Nancy and Jonathan like a second and a third time, I really, really liked it a lot. Way more than I did the first time I watched it. And I think that it was really well done. Here are these two. The first time through, I have to ask you, did you think that there was a possibility that they could die? I mean, we were so close to the end of the series. I really, really thought that there was a possibility that either one or both of them could die in that scene.
I did too. Yeah, absolutely. Because I mean, they're not getting out without help.
Right.
Right. If the melty stuff continues.
Right. And
yeah. So yeah, I did. I kind of thought, and especially because it becomes such a relationshipy scene.
Yes.
You sort of get that sense of like, oh, you know what? They're like, I mean, first of all, I mean, dude, you got to dump this chick. She doesn't like the Clash. Yeah. See ya, sweetie. But anyway, they're sort of like, going through the like no more secrets part of like, which is what you do at the end.
Right.
And they're sort of bearing their souls of like, yeah, I always hated it when you did this, I always put up with it or whatever. And so absolutely, I was kind of going like, like in the previous episode, I'm like, oh my God, are they gonna kill, Max, or are they gonna kill Holly, or are they gonna kill Will? And then this time around, or the 2 episodes ago, you're like, holy crap, the demos are gonna kill everybody, right?
Yeah.
And you really thought it was gonna happen, and this continues right into this one where you're like, because I was operating I was kind of using like Walking Dead rules for some reason, where it's like, well, they're not all gonna make it, I mean, like I wouldn't put it past the Duffers to be like, yeah, you know what, that character, didn't make it, sorry, it's the end of the show, what are you gonna do,
Right.
That kind of thing. So I kept kind of going, well, who drew the short straw,
Right.
who are they gonna whack? And it's like we came close a couple of times, so this time through I'm like, yeah, unless Harrington and Dustin show up, and we kind of, I think, had already been shown that, like, yeah, they ain't coming because they can't get up there,
Right.
So yeah, I certainly did. I certainly had that thought of like this could be it. Like
Yep.
at least like maybe Jonathan will like sure out through the opening, but he won't get out or something. And
Exactly.
yeah, I did absolutely.
Yeah, I thought maybe there'd be a possibility of like, like I can lift you up, but I can't get out myself, or something like that was going to happen.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I enjoyed that scene so much more. The second and third time through, really, really, really enjoyed that scene. And a lot of what it did too was it reminded me of, I actually, even though the relationship drama stuff is not great, who doesn't love a little, sexual tension? These two should hook up. And I absolutely love the episode when they went together to find Murray and talk to him, and they end up spending the night, and they hook up there. That I love that episode. I think that to me is great television. Like that whole like will they won't they, and then like it gets all the way up to like it gets very like sexually charged, and then there's like a point, and then they come together, and it was really well done. And
and Murray is great.
Yes, and the Murray factor is fantastic.
Yes.
So it reminded me of how they got together, and that they really did have a lot of energy in the beginning. And it made me sad that, they couldn't work it out, but I liked that I was so ready for them to kind of die, because they gave each other permission to sort of break up with each other. You know what I mean? They sort of apologized and made it okay that it's okay that we're not together, because we had this great time together and we don't have to be together moving forward. Okay, so all of that's great. And I really did love the structure of the scene, even him showing her the ring and how he asked her. And it's kind of cheesy, will you agree to not marry me?
Yeah,
and she says yes and whatever. And they have their moment, and it's great. And it's extra cheesy, but they're also, they're confessing a lot there, and they're really prepared. They are expecting to die. They think they're done for.
Right.
And then they hug, and when he flings the ring and it bounces, and they realize that they're okay, because everything has hardened. So they're not going to drown in slop. And it's great. There's this great energy of, they're going to make it. At least for now, they're still stuck in this room, but they're not gonna drown, as it were. And so there's this renewed energy, and they're so happy, and all of that. And the camera pans back, and they're hugging because they're so happy, and it shows the ring on the hardened surface. And all I can think is, so wouldn't your pants be as hard as a rock? And didn't you have a whole bunch of it in your hair because you got because like Jonathan was laying like half in, half out, and the stuff was dripping on his face. That's how he woke up. So they've got, now throughout the scene, they had coats on, they took them off. I get it. But they still had like socks, shoes, pants that got drenched.
Goopy.
I mean, she like, wades across to break off that piece of the chair to try and poke their way out, and it comes rushing in even more. I mean, even if you allow for they got up on top of the table and maybe a majority of it like came off of them, like dripped off of their clothes, it's not like they were dry. I just think that I appreciate the plot device of it all of a sudden, ping, hardens up. It looked great. The fling into the ring was great. But the plot hole of them not also walking around like now they're like, the guy from the Fantastic Four, Mr. Thing, because they're made out of rock now because their legs are all like solid. I didn't like that part of it. So
that took you out of it, you're saying?
It did a little bit, and it just in terms of like I appreciate that these guys have created, the Duffer Brothers have created this really great fantasy story, and they created the rules here. all of this stuff where it's just this hometown and they're playing D&D right alongside these like very D&D things that are happening. Like they've created this whole like fantasy world. There's no reason why they couldn't also create this other, it would have been more believable. I hate to say it. It would have been more believable if they had realized, oh my God, my pants are dry. I need to take my pants off. If they're just like standing there in like, their birthday, not them, in their underwear or whatever, like that would have been more believable, or if they like did that and then like they took their pants and like had to smack all the stuff off of them or something. I just needed like a little bit of explanation to explain why everything else hardened like a rock except them. That's all. And in a fantasy world, you can do something real quick and explain something away, and they just chose to not do it. So I'm like, down on you, Duffer Brothers.
Well, all I can say is I certainly would have not objected at all if Nancy had decided to take her pants off at that moment. I'm just going to throw that out there, okay?
As soon as I said that, I was like, Steve's going to be like, well, they should have done that.
They should have.
What should have happened?
I kind of think like the whole series she should have done pantless, really, if you think about it. But yeah, I think you just got to kind of let it go, kid.
I know. I think eventually
the Duffer's response to that is Wizards, make your own damn movie.
Yeah,
as to why it didn't work that way. But you're right. There's a little moment in there that I really appreciated where she goes to get the chair leg, right? And when she comes back, like the goop is so like viscous and thick and sticky, it pulls one of her shoes off.
Yes.
And when they get up on the table, when they, because like they poke a hole in the door and like there's like the outside of the door, like you said, it starts, shooting in through the hole. It's sort of like creating another hole in the Titanic. It doesn't let the water out. It lets more water in, And so they then decide the only thing left is to get up on the table. And so there's a scene where they get up on the table, and that's when you can tell that Nancy's, one of her feet is just a sock, there's no shoe. Right. And then there's one shot where they cut to you see her shoe like sinking into the goop. Correct. In the foreground, and again, it's just a little moment, but it's really great because you're like, oh yeah, she lost a shoe. I get it, but it also helps sell the idea that whatever that stuff was, it is, very, thick and sticky and, it's not like water, yes. Right? It's not that kind of thing. So that totally sells the point you're making of if all of it like instantly hardens, and let's be honest, it instantly hardens.
Right.
Like you said, I mean, they're hugging and they're holding the ring, and then he kind of tosses it, and then they hear it, bing, 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 on the thing, and then that's how they know, like, oh, wait a minute, we're not going to die. Awesome. But yeah, so you'd think that certainly their pants, like their lower bodies, which was what they were most, exposed to, that there would be like this resin layer on the outside that would make it very difficult for them to move around. So, correct. But I'm guessing the Duffers just kind of went, yeah, you know what? It just doesn't freeze on them. We just got to move on, keep going.
Right,
I mean,
right. And I get that. To me, the thing that really disappointed me as a part of it was because they made such a big deal of showing the soldiers stuck in the plastic. You know what I mean? They showed them all sort of like encased, so that was their ultimate fear was, oh my God, not so much we're gonna die, but we're gonna end up stuck in this area and we won't be able to get out. So to have set that up as the plot device and then have not followed through on the whole, like, oh, by the way, their clothes are wet as well. That's just, I know it's one of those, like, nitpicky things. But,
no, hey, it affected you, and it took you out of the moment. So it's clearly a big enough thing that it detracted from your enjoyment. So that's
just slightly. So that was my number 5, and it detracted slightly, but I do still think that upon my second and third watchings, I still, prior to the why didn't they turn to hardened plastic. Everything leading up to that, like, really, really enjoyed it second time and third time through. So yeah, so that's my number 5. Questions about the floor hardening. So
That's my, you know what? I would love to find out, and I didn't really do any sleuthing on this on the interwebs, but I would love to find out what that stuff was.
Yeah.
That they used for filming that, because it looked very viscous and thick, almost like an oil,
right.
Type substance. And I'm just, you just, when I'm watching them in that scene, I'm like, oh, that day must have sucked for those
Right.
two actors, because that crap gets everywhere, and it probably was sticky, and you know what I mean. It just
Right.
whenever like your clothes get, even if they just get wet, for me personally, it's just like, ugh,
I
you
know.
feel awful and you want to change out of it and dry off, and they had to wait around in this like thick, icky, gooey, sticky, whatever it was.
Yep.
It's just like, that day must have sucked.
I'm
So
sure it did.
yeah. And it also could have been fun too if it was like vegetable oil or something, and they could like splash around in it a little bit, and it wouldn't be like toxic or something, right? But yeah. I also just really real quickly, I just love the fact that we saw the melty earlier. And
Hmm.
our comments, I think in last episode, were like, "What the hell happened?"
Yeah.
And even they too, they were like, Jesus, what, why is this, the whole place look like it melted a little? And then the fact that the Duffers are like, just wait, we're gonna
This
not
gets
only
better.
and you're gonna get to experience it firsthand, and I mean, what a great effect visually.
Yes.
Where they're in that like conference room, and literally the walls and the ceiling are like melting and like like oozing down the side. I mean, it was great. It really was. My thing that took me out of reality wasn't so much the fact that they didn't harden. My thing was like, why didn't they fall through the floor?
Right. Why did it stop?
Yeah,
Right
because in my number 5, when we get to Dustin and Steve, clearly there are several floors below where Nancy and Jonathan are, and like the stairs completely fall
Yes.
apart.
Yes.
So, and that's how they got in there in the first place, is they were lying unconscious on the roof, and the roof melted to where they obviously fell into that next room,
Yeah.
and that. So yeah, that was my point. Was like, well, wait a minute, why is this floor suddenly not continuing to melt? And they're just, you'd think they would have just fall all the way down, so eventually they're on the ground floor and then they can leave. But whatever.
Yeah,
Anyway.
that seems like that would be it. Yeah, that's another thing too, is like it just sort of randomly stops with them instead of. Yeah, I'm with you. Yes, agreed.
But
All right,
still, a great relationship scene, though, no doubt.
Yeah. So Lynn, you brought it up, so let's talk about your number 5, your Dustin moment there.
Yeah, it's the big Dustin moment. And I would say, out of all of the threads or the characters for this episode, Dustin and Steve are the ones that get the least amount of screen time. In terms of what's going on with them. I mean, maybe you could say Erica and Murray, because they're really in just that one scene, whereas Dustin gets a couple of scenes here with, when there's a big expo scene where he explains what's going on. And we find out that, this thing, it's not a force field generator, but it's a wormhole that is connecting two universes. And that's why you can't shoot it, because if you were to blow it up, it could destroy both of them, kind of a thing. And so that was interesting to find that out, that's what it was. It wasn't something that Henry made. It wasn't protecting Holly. It wasn't, keeping him safe or whatever. It was something that essentially the Institute made back when they first created the breach, back in before season 1. I mean, it's like, it's completely has nothing really to do with Henry and his plan, which is a huge reveal, because we all assumed, at least I did, that was absolutely something he created to kind of keep, people out. Didn't you?
Of course. Yeah, it's interesting, and the explanation continues and gets a little more succinct in the next episode, so I will let people know if they are following along and only watching as they go, which is really interesting. I did jump ahead to the next episode. I couldn't help myself.
Oh my God, woman.
I know. But the explaining gets a little bit more succinct, but for even the beginning you get here is, yes, it was a little bit of a surprise to find out that it wasn't this world is not like Henry created. There's more to it than that.
Yeah, much more. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, of course, he also realizes the danger of if they were to, I don't know, shoot it with a shotgun, it could be bad. So he is racing, trying to get up there. He bumps into to Steve again. And so then the two of them are trying to get up there. And it's weird because about halfway up, Dustin stops really trying to get up there. Right. And it's Steve that is sort of like, come on, we gotta go. And
right.
They like step on the stairs and like I said, like the stairs kind of are melting away, and there's a big gap between where they are and the next floor. And so Steve Harrington is running around and he finds the ladder, right? Because of course they're gonna find a ladder in a lab like that.
Why not? You?
Of course, And so he brings it back and he like literally lays it down to kind of cover the opening. And Dustin is like, oh no, that's never gonna work. You can't do that. And of course, Steve's like, no, we have to go. First of all, they're our friends. We have to go help them.
Yes.
We have to rescue them if they need help. And second of all, if this is as bad as you said it is, we have to stop them from, ending everything.
Yes.
And Dustin is just like not having it at all. He's like, no, don't go. Don't do it. Don't do it. And I think Steve we're kind of living through Steve, the audience is, in that we don't get it and he doesn't get it. Why is Dustin so anti go up to the roof plan thing?
What's his because he was the one that was running up to the roof. Like, what's the change? What does he feel this way now? Yes.
Yeah, and this is where like we finally kind of get a little insight into, we knew Dustin was angry about Eddie from the beginning, and clearly having a little bit of a problem processing that loss.
Of course.
That Eddie was his very good friend, and he trusted him, he really liked him, and Eddie believed in him and saw the potential and encouraged Dustin and all those things that you want a friend to do. He did, and so then the fact that he not only is he dead is hard to process, but the fact that everybody in the town hates him,
yes,
and thinks he is this horrible monster person, that we all knew that didn't sit well. But there's actually a little more going on with Dustin, and here it comes out, because when Harrington is like, why do you not want me to try and go up and rescue our friends and do all the things we need to do? And Dustin breaks down and he basically goes, if you go on there, meaning the ladder, he goes, you're gonna die. And I can't deal with that again. You can't die because I can't deal with it again. Don't let it happen again. Please don't let it happen again. And then he like hugs Steve, and then you hear him and he goes, not you.
Aww.
And it even my cold dead heart reacted to that, here's this kid that is like, look, I already lost I have like two pillars in my life that keep me up and upright and functioning, and one of them just got ripped out from me, and right. You're the other one, and I will not make it if you go.
Right.
And yeah, I mean, and it's heartwarming and it's sad, and I think that Joe Keery plays Steve's reaction great.
He's so surprised, it is number one, not what he was expecting to get from Dustin at all. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, he was very surprised. And then once Dustin, it just starts coming out of Dustin and he's just, venting and letting it out. The fact that he just kind of hugs him and just lets him, you say what you got to say. and I'm right here and I'm not going anywhere,
Yeah.
and then of course, the ladder falls through the opening like a second later, and he's like, damn, you were right. If I'd gotten on that, I'd be dead, because the ladder falls like all the way down to the ground floor, right?
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I thought it was a great moment. I thought it was a good payoff for all of the Dustin anger stuff we've gotten so far this season. And the fact that, Dustin and Steve for a long time were the duo. They were very close in earlier seasons, and the fact that he was so angry with him in this season, and you're like, what happened with that? Why is that? And then you find out, well, no, it's not. He still likes him just as much as he always did, probably more. This is his way of basically saying, I'm not going to be around you if you're going to die too, because I can't hack it.
Handle that. Yeah.
Yeah. So what did you think of that scene? What did it warm your cold heart as well? Or
It did. And it was, you sort of felt like they were going to make it to that, because Dustin's never been the angry person. So you knew, even in the beginning of the season, when you're starting to like, this is so strange. Dustin's always been like the goofy, fun-loving, always up for a laugh kind of, pokes fun at the situation kind of guy, has always from day one. So for him to have been as negative as he was always so hard to handle, and you sort of felt like it's got to break at some point. But the way it did was surprising, which is why it was so effective. You knew that it's obvious that he was hurting about the Eddie stuff, because he was so triggered by the guys in like the first episode and all that stuff. So you knew that that's where his pain was emanating from. But for that extra layer of pain, for him to not be able to deal with the idea, even remotely, of possibly losing Steve in any way was so surprising. And the best part about that scene, you expect Dustin to be, I don't want to say expect, but Dustin's been emotional in the past, and he has that capacity. The best part of the scene to me was Steve's reaction. Yeah. Because he was so surprised, and just so, it was almost like it's everything that those two needed in that moment to be able to move on and do good things, and help their friends and da-da-da-da. They needed that moment with each other. And Steve didn't know he needed that moment until it happened. And he didn't expect it to happen, and then it did. And so I thought it was great. It was a wonderful scene. It tugged at all the heartstrings the way it was supposed to. But it didn't feel cheap. It felt very earned, because Dustin's been this person since day one, and he and Steve have been bickering for 6 damn episodes. So it'd be different if this scene happened and it had only sprung up like an episode ago. It wouldn't have felt earned, but it felt earned. Yeah, it was good.
Yeah. Well, and just on a personal note, I mean, I certainly agree that, everybody out there should have that reaction at the thought of losing Steve. So
agreed. Everyone needs a Steve in their life.
That's right, baby. Although, I don't really, you can't really refer to me as the hair, can you?
No, we can't.
No.
We can call you like the no hair.
The no hair. There we go. That's right.
You are the direct opposite of Steve the hair.
That's right. That's right. I'm Steve the head.
Yeah. There you are. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk our honorable mentions. You brought it up earlier, but I wanted to include the comments from it. But in that scene where Murray and Erica ring Mr. Clark's doorbell, and we find out that he is Stupping, the librarian, and there's this great like Abbott and Costello moment where Erica says to Mr. Clark, "The librarian?" And Murray says, "You get too loud and sack, she shush ya." And it is golden, because Erica is inappropriate all the time, because she swears, she cusses, she's great. I love her. So the two of them together are an inappropriate, like, Heckle and Jekyll, they are fantastic, and I love their energy together. They have always been great together from the moment, Bald Eagle, all that, you know what I mean? They have always had great energy together. So I love that they're paired up in this scene. Great energy.
Yeah, I agree.
My other points, we already talked about the cutting out of the spyglass cover, like the lens cap being in the shape of the M was the nod to the Goonies, which I thought was fantastic. And we both included this in our honorable mentions, but it's a really great plot point. There were so many really great things in this episode, and it was hard to whittle it down to 5. But there's a really great moment right at the end of the episode with, dude, pardon my French, but Karen fucking Wheeler, man.
Yeah.
She kicking ass again.
She does. Do not mess with the mama bear's cubs. I mean, yeah. Well, that whole end sequence, in the hospital is so great, and we kind of find out that I think goes into like the salt bath and finds Will and brings Will back, because Will never woke up after he did the run Max run thing, and so he's stuck in Henryland. So Elle goes in and saves him and brings him back, and he then basically tells everybody in the real world that Henry knows where Max is in the hospital, right? Remember, there's the whole bit where he tells Will, you're gonna spy for me one more time, William, and all that, and so he knows, and so he sends, he obviously has an never-ending supply of Demogorgons, and he sends a couple more to go kill her in the hospital, and so they race over there, and by they I mean it's Robin. And who, I think Robin and Lucas, right? They go.
Yes. And Will and Mike stays behind with Joyce and Will.
Yeah, right. And so Robin and Lucas get there, and of course, they're looking for Robin because they found out that she stole all the drugs, and then Vicky shows up and I need to talk to you, and Vicky is convinced that she's a druggie because she took all those things, and so then she literally Robin's like, okay, you want to know what's going on? Fine. And then it cuts to something else, and then when it comes back, clearly she's spilled all she knows, and this just convinces Vicky even more that she's a drug head, that she's
she's you need help or whatever.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And I like that Robin's response is seriously, the military's occupying our town. There are these huge trenches that opened up in Hawkins, and my stuff is so crazy and
hard
unbelievable,
you know.
And so anyway, the MPs show up and they're going to arrest her, and then right then all the lights start doing the flickery thing, which means that the demos are very close, and it's great because Vicky gets her oh crap, this is all real moment really quickly. Yes.
She really does.
Yeah, and so they end up Lucas had gone up to see Max, and he turns on the cassette, and of course then we cut back to Henryland, and she can hear the music, and so they know they're getting close, and they she sees the portal right with her in the hospital bed, and that's when she tells poor Holly that, well, you can't come with me.
Yeah.
And Holly's like, I'm sorry, what? And she's like, you got to find your own exit point, and then they see that it's on the other side, and then she I like that at least Max goes, I imagine that you're still in the upside down somewhere, and so you're probably going to wake up and be held by Henry, so be ready for that. That was nice. That was a good bit to kind of prepare her for what's coming, and so all this is going on, and then the demos are closing in, and so they go on the intercom, and they try to first they try to call Lucas's room, and then Vicky's like, do these things understand English? And she's like, I don't think so. And then she's like, boop, and then she uses the loudspeaker to say, Lucas, they're coming, you got to get her out of there. And Mama Wheeler hears
the whole
that
thing,
and then it's great because she reaches down and she just rips that IV out of her arm, and it's just like, oh,
so
it's
badass.
on, yeah.
And it's great because like you see her being this badass, and you're like, huh, Nancy does get it from her mom.
She
it's
does.
absolutely true.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Like that's where she gets it. And so as she's moving down, trying to find where the rest of the group is, there's a real quick scene where she comes across like these 3 or 4 oxygen tanks.
Yeah.
That people use to have the little breathing mask kind of a thing, and they're like on the little carts you wheel around kind of thing. And so then Lucas and Robin and Vicky, and they have the unconscious Max with them.
Yep.
They make their way down into the basement, but they can't get out. They end up going into like where the laundry is, where they like wash the sheets and stuff for the hospital. And they literally lock the door and they're hiding, and they're like, what are we gonna do? And it's so great because the demos are like breaking the door down, and Robin's like, you're gonna have to turn off the music, and he's like, no, I can't. And so you're like, oh, seriously, and so the Duffers ratchet up the tension because these 3 demos are like closing in from all directions on them, and they're looking up in the mirror and they see them, and they're and they're like right there. They're gonna come around the corner and see them, and right when that happens, they hear like a dryer buzz. Mm-hmm. And all the demos turn and go over, and all 3 of them like walk right up to it, and you see this dryer, and it's spinning, and there's something in there, but it's not closed, and then it cuts to the inside, and it's one of those oxygen tanks. Yeah. And I know that you're a big fan of the movie Jaws. And what is it that Hooper warned Brody about? If you mess around with those tanks,
they'll explode.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
And so it ends up blowing up and takes out all 3 demos, and then there's just this great reveal where Mrs. Wheeler kind of walks in, and she's just badassing it up as like, I did that. Yeah. So,
it's fantastic.
It is
fantastic.
It's an incredible ending, and again, just like we were just talking about with Nancy and Jonathan, at that moment I'm like, maybe one of these 3 are gonna go.
Yeah, who knows?
And certainly like Vicky.
Vicky she's expendable.
She has no plot armor at all,
Oh, God,
it would certainly be not surprising if Vicky didn't make it,
Yeah, I'm so sorry, Vicky.
Yeah, right. You tried, you kind of got, the your eyes were open to what's going on, and now you're dead, but
Sorry, not sorry.
Yeah. So, but again, it's a really cool way to kind of wrap up that storyline there. So that was one of my honorable mentions as well. So super cool,
love
man.
It.
So
and then I hit all of my honorable mentions. Do you want to? Do you want to make sure we talked about? I think we talked about yours, but if there's anything else you want to add.
Yeah, because we didn't really go into it too much, but that when it's Henry's origin story, which we finally start to see a little bit of how did Henry become Henry, because we know that like Elle, or Jane, as Collie wants everyone to call her, we know that they got their powers because they were given big amounts of Henry's blood, but that doesn't explain how Henry got his super abilities. And we kind of learn a little bit more about that in that when Holly and Max find this opening, and this they go down the ladder, and they're in this like tunnel, and this is somewhere Max has never been, so she has no idea what's there. They like start going down the tunnel, and there is a guy lying on the ground, and he looks like he's been shot, and he's like gut shot, and he has a pistol, and he has this like, primo, like I'm a spy briefcase kind of thing with him, right?
Of course.
It's one of those. And he's, clearly like slowly dying from how he got shot. He's like bleeding out or whatever. And he, and of course, Holly's like, stuff in here can't hurt us, right? And Max reassures her that, yes, this is all just memories. It's like watching a movie, that
Right.
we can't be hurt. And so they're walking up to him, and all of a sudden he like points the gun at him and goes, "Who are you?" And then you're sort of like, oh crap. But it turns out that like 8-year-old Henry is behind them, and that's who he is. So it's like the memory is going, right? And they kind of watch, and little like Boy Scout Henry comes upon this dude, and he's like, "Who sent you?" And Henry's like, "Nobody sent me. I heard the gunshot or whatever, and I came in here." And he's like, "No, somebody sent you." And he like tries to shoot at Henry, and he shoots him in the hand, right? And that's how Henry got his scar on his hand. And and so then like Henry like picks up a rock and like literally kills this guy by like braining him with this.
It's pretty brutal.
Oh, it is. And he gets, it's like the Rick Grimes, his face is covered in blood, and from this close kill. And when you're watching it, you're like, look, you that guy was going to kill you. So you didn't have a choice.
Right.
Not that it makes it any better, but it's like, dude, it's not like you just decided to kill him for fun. It's like, no, he was going to kill you, but he does. He kills him and just, smacks him and he repeatedly brains him with this rock. And it's brutal and it's visceral. And Holly and Max do not spend all that much time watching it. They kind of leave.
Right.
Because they find this like cave in, and then she starts hearing the music on the other side, and then their job becomes to like clear the cave in enough that they can get through and get out and so on. But we start to learn about Henry's origin in that scene, and I just liked it because I myself, when I was watching this, was curious, like, well, how did Henry get his juju? Right. Because clearly he couldn't get an infusion of his own blood, so that wouldn't really do much. So, and this is like the first part, and like you said, about some other things like the Dustin theory. In either the next episode or the episode after that, we will revisit this sequence and learn a little bit more and learn a little. Oh, that's about Henry. So that made my honorable mention too. So
nice. Yeah. Nice. Yeah. All right. I think we covered pretty much everything we wanted to cover, it looks like.
Yeah, it was like we said, it was a good, solid episode. I want to say it was 75 minutes long, so they're starting to get a little longer. Little bit. We're past the like 56 minutes, the 58 minutes. I think last week was like 65 or 68 minutes. Now we're at 75, so we're kind of pushing closer to that feature film length. Right?
We're getting there.
And then I think next week is kind of about the same as this one. And then, like we were talking about before we started, the episode 8 it's a good 2+ hours.
2 hours.
Yeah. So
there's that. So that's it for covering our points for this episode. We did pretty good this time. We're going to go ahead, folks, and take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to discuss our listener feedback and what's coming up on the podcast.
Yeah, so everybody, please stick around because we are going to be right back.
Now there's about 20 of them out there.
What will we do?
Don't worry, we're safe in here. They'll never get in.
Why is it that in every zombie story, people always think that their safe haven is invulnerable?
I know. It's like, hello, the walkers are totally going to get in. You better get ready for it.
No! Diane, get behind me. No, it's not stopping.
Do something, Jack!
And another thing, how come nobody in a zombie story has ever seen a zombie story?
Do you know how much time in human life would be saved if just one person in the group was up on the genre?
What do we do?
Aim for the head.
What?
Aim for the head.
You heard them. Aim for the head.
Quick, Diane, I think we should try and fix the barricades.
I think we should listen to them.
Now, that's the first good idea they've had all episode.
I still don't think they're gonna make it.
Aim for the Head, a horror apocalypse entertainment podcast. Join hosts Diana and Steve as they recap and discuss the best of horror, sci-fi, fantasy, and apocalyptic entertainment. Aim for the Head, available wherever you listen to podcasts. Find us on Instagram and Blue Sky.
Hi, this is Tom Savini, and you're listening to the Aim for the Head podcast with Diana and Steve. And don't forget to always aim for the head because body shots just don't work.
Hey there, everybody. We are back. We're going to go ahead and jump right into our listener feedback and then chat a little bit about what's coming up on the podcast. So, Steve, why don't you get started?
All right. So we received actually multiple feedbacks this week. Isn't that
Our cup
excellent?
runneth over.
It's so great. And our first one, this came via the Facebook, and this is from one of our, I know it's one of your pals, and one of our listeners, and it's Wendy Ann.
Hey, Wendy.
Hello, Wendy Ann. How are you? And she, again, I think was responding to one of your posts with a picture of the episode. And she goes, I liked it. I do wish there was more, and she uses air quotes here, downtime overall. I miss the quieter times, the lighter, funnier parts. But the action, the acting, the effects have all been incredible. And yeah, we kind of made that point, too, that, you know, like the little Murray, Erica moment there with Mr. Clark, you know, it was funny. There wasn't like imminent death, and it was that kind of gallows humor kind of thing. It was just a lighter moment where everything wasn't you know, life and death going on. So
there is a lot of life and death this time around because we're really sort of barreling towards a final conclusion, and it's hard to like waste. I mean, I use, you know, the wasting time on those lighter moments, which in previous seasons they would have sort of, you know, spent a little bit more time and sort of, you know, drawn those moments out. Whereas now it's a little more like, okay, we don't have time to talk about this because we got shit to do.
As Trevor Noah once said, ain't nobody got time for that now.
Yeah, ain't nobody got time. Thanks for writing in, though, Wendy. We appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, Wendy. That was
nice
awesome.
to hear from you.
Please let us know what you think of the last two.
Yeah, she did mention when she left her feedback that she hadn't finished the series but had just watched that episode. So I'm hoping that she is continuing on and getting to episode 7 and episode 8 in time to leave us some feedback. So, you know, maybe I'll, you know, online bully her a little bit, much like our other person who leaves feedback.
Well, you know, if there's anyone amongst the two of us that's an online bully, it's you. So
I'm
there
really
you
good.
go.
I'm clearly I've shown some you know, some aptitude in that area.
I think you have promise, young Jedi. Yes, young Padawan.
So thanks again, Wendy. Hopefully we'll hear from you again next week and the week after. Let us know.
Yay!
All right, so next up, we did receive some feedback from our pal Mike Brownlee, and he left his feedback via the Facebook, per usual, and he said, I remember liking this episode for the most part. The whole upside down is a wormhole created by the orb of science fiction math, that's air quotes, by the way, feels a little sus, as the kids say, but I suppose the Duffers felt like they needed to keep upping the stakes, so now the Scooby Gang gets to save the entire universe, and he does like a shoulder shrug emoji. He continues on and says, but I liked the Henry memory discovery, which you enjoyed as well, but don't get me started about how the fuck a dude falls down an abandoned mine shaft in the middle of the desert with a soul of the mind flayer. Thank God whatever that case was made out of was enough to contain it? ? It's curious, though. I will interject there. We will obviously find out more as the episodes go on. This story sort of gets fleshed out a little bit more as we go. But it felt to me like there was more mine shaft stuff. Like the shaft led to, you know, like where Henry came from. That they didn't necessarily arrive at the shaft by the way they came, that Max and Holly came in. Like maybe there was another way to get to where they were. I don't know.
Yeah, I agree. I think the fact that they fell through that opening doesn't mean that he did.
Right.
I think that that you're right that, and I can't remember how much we learn about that. I want to say that we see Henry coming in through like a different opening, but I don't remember if I think that guy's just always there.
Right.
So but yeah, and it's interesting that Mike, that he made that jump, that he fell through there, and I'm like, well, Holly kind of fell through it for the first time,
right,
right? So yeah, I kind of always went with the idea that he came in a different way.
Right.
And again, he'd been shot and so on.
Right. But I understand making the leap in this episode because we don't really get any of the story of how Henry gets there, how this guy shows up there.
Yeah,
like,
right.
So we find them there, and the only entrance we do see in this episode is the one that Max and Holly find. So it's easy to be like, well, until we see something else, this feels kind of sus, as the kids say. So,
as the kids say.
Let's continue on. Michael continues and says, I continue to feel like Elle is underused, but I liked her searching for Will in the void. And the race to save Max had me on the edge of my seat. Though the scene where, I love this, Anne with an E accuses Robin of doing drugs makes me a bit frustrated. I love that he called Vicky Anne with an E because she's a redhead and she looks a little bit like Anne of Green Gables. As I've expressed before, there is so much weird shit happening in this town. Why do we doubt people when they tell us there's weird shit going on? ? Which we discussed. It's not a big leap for there to be like, hey, there's this crazy underworld happening. It's one thing to like the army is, and they've taken occupation of your town, but also like, hello, like the big X mark that like just broke through and never really got fixed. It's covered by metal plates and there's something weird underneath and we don't know what it is, but all of this other stuff is unbelievable in comparison to that. What?
Yeah. Suddenly my story is so preposterous, really.
Agreed.
Yeah.
That seems strange. Continuing, he says, and while I liked the, air quotes, unproposal, I felt like the melting world was a bit meh. Like, it could have been an interesting ticking clock if the entire upside down continued to turn to goo as the orb became less stable. It's true it was kind of centrally located. But it feels like we just needed a device to create some tension with this faction of the group until we could get them all back together. And thank God that stuff hardened so fast. I assume it was really easy to wash out of their hair and clothes.
Somebody else made that point. Who was it?
I know. When he left that point, I was like, good, it's not just me. And he continues.
It's you.
I know. He wraps up by saying, good ending, though. Even if it did feel a bit like Max was abandoning Holly. I'm going to jump into my body, but you got to find your own. I'm sure it'll be fine. Bye.
Yeah. It was kind of tacked on where she's like, oh, by the way, you can't come with me. You got to go find your own way out. Got to go.
and it's true. It's frustrating in two areas, which is she waited until the last minute to be like, oh, by the way, I was thinking about this and I don't think you can come through the same portal as me. You'll have to find your own. And not only is that frustrating that it sort of happened at the last minute, but then the long ass discussion that they have when it's like, shouldn't you be running towards, the whole running up that hill, the song has a purpose, right? So you're just like lackadaisically, we're just strolling through this like total like weird hellscape that is part of Henry's mind and whatever, but we're gonna take our time and do a little exposition and we're gonna make Holly feel better because she's Holly the heroic and all of that, and you saved me and Holly Wheeler saved me. Okay, I gotta go. Bye.
So thanks for coming.
Thanks for your help, Holly. Bye. Yeah, I agree that it was a little it tugs at the heartstrings, but the structure of it, I know it bothered a lot of people. They're like, hello, could you stop the whole exposition dump and just, go? Yeah. Especially since you just want Max to to come through. Plus, what's happening on the other end of it. Lucas is there. He's holding her. They're just about to be, overtaken by the demo dogs. And, it's right before we have the scene with Mrs. Wheeler and whatever. And the music is playing and it's all very tense and whatever. It's very stressful. And they're just, la-di-da. Just taking a stroll and I'm going to make you feel better about yourself. And
yep.
And you're like, could you get this moving?
But on the plus side, though, they both get their steps in at the end because they're both running towards their respective portals,
True.
So
True.
so at least they're getting their cardio, and that's good.
Right,
and, yeah.
right. And Max definitely needs it because she'd just been laying in a trance.
Oh,
for
yeah,
almost
she's
2
just a
years now.
lump. I mean, come on. Jeez.
Thanks for writing in again, Brownlee. We love to hear from you, and no matter how much I bother you about it, you still send in your feedback, and I appreciate it.
Yes, and despite the bullying, I also appreciate it, and I'm glad that your response to her, pressure is to provide us with this good feedback. So thank you.
Yes, I appreciate it. All right, so coming up on the podcast, next week we'll be discussing episode 7, which is the title, Chapter 7, The Bridge. And the description we have of that episode is, on the anniversary of Will's disappearance, see how I mentioned the November 6th thing? The party reunites to prepare for battle with world-altering implications.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know. Dun, dun, dun. Can't you just feel the tension in that title? It's crazy.
I
know.
Just world-altering. I mean, come on.
I mean, it doesn't get any worse than that.
No.
So that'll be next week, folks, where we discuss Chapter 7. And just throwing it out there, we discussed last week that we were going to start seeing some social media stuff about our anniversary, and just curious if people have been seeing those posts and have been enjoying interacting with our look back at each year that Aim for the Head has been around. So I have loved putting these together, just sort of like revisiting what we've done from year to year, and what shows we've covered, and what special episodes we've done, what conventions we've gone to, what little bits and pieces. So it's been really, really great. So it's been fun to create them and to follow along. And I'm just curious if people have been listening in to some of the older episodes, or just even bookmarking them for later to check them out if it's something you never listened to before. So yeah, it's been fun doing that. Have you you've seen all those posts that I've been doing, clearly?
Oh yeah, I have, and I think I speak for all of our listeners that while they're fun, they clearly don't have enough Steve in them. But no, it's really cool to kind of look back and to see, oh, this was the most popular episode. It was covering, whether it was the season, finale of Walking Dead, or like the most recent one where it was the dual episode with Fear.
Which was so interesting. I was so surprised that was the one that had the most downloads.
But you know what? It's not because of Fear. It's because of World Beyond. And
absolutely.
And that got me thinking, just going back and kind of revisiting. And I just remember how you and I literally were like, okay, so if we record it, it's going to be 2 hours. If we do 10 minutes on Fear and the rest of it on World Beyond, we're cool with that, right? And I'm like, yeah, but I just remember that, how we were like so loathing the one show, and World Beyond, while it wasn't great, it was clearly better than Fear, and it was like, it had the benefit of it got better as it went on.
Yes, it was improving. It's interesting too, like I had totally forgotten the reason that we were even stuck doing double episodes like that was they did this terrible thing when they were trying to promote World Beyond, and they had it ran concurrently with Fear. I think for the second season it did that. That was mostly to get people to watch Fear the Walking Dead, let's be honest. They would do the thing where they would premiere the one thing and then do the, and tie in like, the last episode of one series and the first episode of the other, and they'd have it run on the same night, and you're like, how do you cover this on a podcast? It was so maddening.
Yes.
Yeah.
But now looking back at it, it's really kind of fun to sort of remember, oh yeah, that's what we were doing, and that's what we were kind of slogging through on the one hand, and so on. So yeah, I've been really enjoying them. So like I said, though, I think the people will have spoken that clearly if you can include more Steve, that would be certainly beneficial for everyone,
especially to Steve.
Hey, come on.
Everybody wants more Steve in their life.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap it up for this week, folks. We look forward to chatting with you again next week, where we'll be covering episode 7 for Stranger Things final season there. But until then, as always, I'm Diana.
And I'm Steve.
And don't forget to always aim for the head.
Because those body shots, yeah, they just don't work.
To send us an email, write us at aimfortheheadpodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @AFTH Podcast. Pictures and video are always welcome at our Instagram account, Aim for the Head Podcast, all one word. But the best way to keep in touch with us is to just like our Facebook page to get all of our updates in your feed.
Top notch. Well done. I concur.
Well, hang tight for 30 seconds. I'm gonna go to the bathroom, and if there's nothing else to chat about, we can get started, probably, right?